Today we are presenting Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012 Life Sciences and Process Manufacturing for the Global Enterprise. The presenter is John Aschenbrenner, Senior Solution Consultant at Tektura. So without further ado, let me turn it over to John. John, it's all yours.
Great, thanks, Auren. Good afternoon. This is the third in a series of webcasts that Tektura has put together regarding Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012 for the Global Enterprise. We have listed here the upcoming topics. So the next one on effective data management, that'll be on January 19th at 2 p.m. Eastern. And then the final one on the new retail paradigm, and that'll be on February 16th at 11 a.m. Eastern. There will be another slide at the end of the webcast today that'll actually have the dates on, so you can jot those down. And if you want to find out more, simply go to www.tekturaAX2012.com. With that, let's move on to the topic at hand today. So we're going to be talking about process manufacturing and life sciences within Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012. What I want to do here, just a very simple starting point, is to, sometimes people get a little confused on, well, what's, process manufacturing is this, discrete manufacturing is this. So I just put together a very simple description of what, of how I would describe each type of manufacturing. So when you look at discrete manufacturing, I look at that as really a production of a distinct item using, traditional bills of material and routings. Okay? Whereas if you look at process manufacturing, that's typically done where the production is done in bulk, and you're using formulas or recipes rather than bills of materials. And rather than traditional work center routing, it's typically a mixing and or a blending type of process. Okay? So, I like to use the term for processes, if you make it, you can't take it apart. Is pretty much how I would describe the two different types of manufacturing. Okay. With that, let's talk a little bit about, before we dive into the majority of today's session, I'm actually going to be focusing on some of the features and functions that Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012 brings to the table for process manufacturing and life sciences. So let's talk just briefly about some of the industry challenges within these types of organizations. I've listed a few here of the more common challenges that we see when targeting the process manufacturers and life science types of organizations. Just to review these, and these are really the bullets that I'll be hitting on as I go through the presentation today to really show how we address these industry challenges. So the first one, you have continuous or near continuous manufacturing processes involving those flexible formulas and recipes. Okay, so I need my formula to be able, maybe it's the raw material or the ingredient consumption is by percentage rather than hard quantity. Okay, or I want that formula to scale based on my production size. So you have that flexibility. Quality management really goes without saying, but to have an integrated quality management solution within your ERP system is really a benefit. Next, we look at, tracking not only raw materials and finished goods throughout production, but we also have the capability to capture byproducts and co-products as part of the production process. Then we look at end product specification. This, within process and life science industries, sometimes there's a need to break down the product, I guess for lack of a better term, to be able to say, not only do I have this finished product, but this product also has these attributes. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So maybe there's a certain lead content to this particular item, or there's a percent water by volume that you want to track. So you're able to gather those attributes that are product specific. And then lastly, the regulatory and compliance standards. These are a challenge, and depending on the type of industry that you're in, we have different components within the Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012 solution that can address those needs. Okay, so I'll be spending roughly about 30 minutes today reviewing the features in Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012, specifically around the process industry functionality that will really assist in countering a lot of these challenges. Okay, So let's first here start out with the formula and recipe management. I really look at this as the hub, okay? And as I mentioned earlier, with traditional bills of material, you're typically making, a distinct item and the raw materials are constant. Okay, I always use, 2 of these, 3 of these, 4 pounds of this, so on and so forth. Listed here are the features within, oops, got a video screen just popped up there, apologize for that. Listed here are the features Dynamics AX 2012 will bring to the process manufacturers who need the flexibility of formulas. So let's review some of these. So with the formula and recipe management, we have the ability to have a finished or a semi-finished item, okay, within process manufacturing, not to divert back to discrete, but this is, a BOM or a sub-assembly, okay, within process manufacturing. The ingredients for the raw material consumption can be assigned by either quantity or percentage. So like I mentioned earlier, I could say, I don't need 1 of these and 3 of these and 4 of these. I need, 2% of this and 5% of that. So I have the flexibility there to deal with percentages rather than hard quantities. We can have as many versions of the formula as we want. So those versions could be, maybe I have different versions by different formula version by manufacturing site or location. I could have different effectivity dates for my different versions. And then on top of that, I can also have co-products and byproducts as a part of that formula. Okay. Costing can be allocated amongst the finished good item and the co-products. We refer to this as total cost allocation. So I can break that cost, say, so much is going to my, this particular finished good and so much is going to my co-products. And I'll be reviewing that in more detail in a little bit. And then finally, having the, semi-finished items, you can have as many of those sub-formula levels as needed. All right. So with that, this is kind of how I'm going to take the flow today. I'm going to list some features, and then we're going to look at some screenshots so you can see visually how the Dynamics AX 2012 functionality looks. Let's just bounce here. Let's just bounce down. Okay. Just come here to the formula lines. Okay, and I have my pointer here because I want to be able to point out some of the features. And as I was preparing for this, I probably didn't bring the best formula example, but it'll make do. And I'm going to talk about some of the other stuff with another example that I have. But here's an example of a formula just from my demo environment. It's from my pharma demo database. And let's look at some of the features that I refer to as up here in the header and then the line details down here. So notice off the bat, this is a formula for 1,000 capsules of this particular product. I have the site designated so I can have different formula versions for different sites. And my date effectivity, my formula size, and my unit of measure. Okay. A nice feature that Dynamics AX 2012 introduced in this release is the whole concept or the whole idea of catch weight, or dual units of measure. Okay, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but it gives you the ability to do many different types of transactions, whether it's manufacturing type of transaction, purchasing, sales, and I want to be able to do it, handle that in a dual unit of measure way. That's what we use the concept of, or the functionality of catch weight. Okay. Let's bounce down here and look at the line details. So this is telling you here are the raw materials or the ingredients that I'm consuming to produce this particular, to use within this particular formulation. All right. Here I do have it set at just a hard quantity. Okay, so in order to make 1,000 capsules, I need 1,000 of these. And as I was preparing, again, reviewing this 80 inspect probably would have been a better formula because that's actually a sub-assembly to show, because it is percent control. But let's just talk about the functionality over here. So if I wanted to have these as percent controlled rather than hard quantity, I'd simply put a checkbox in here and assign the percentage needed for this particular ingredient. All right? And then you'll notice here there's also an option to mark it as scalable. And what scalable allows me to do is, as I change the formula size, my raw material consumption will also scale to that formula size. Okay? That being said, so we talked about percent control, the actual percent is scalable. That being said, there's also the ability to set up what we call nonlinear consumption. So I can say, for example, if my batch size or my formula size, okay, is between, 1 in 100, for example, I need, 10 of raw material 1, for example. However, if my batch size is from 101 to 150, I need 12. Okay, so you can actually have that nonlinear consumption as part of your formulation and your production process. Okay, so using the formulas within Dynamics AX 2012, it gives process and life science industries the flexibility they need in item and production management. Okay, let's go over to the next topic. Now that we understand really how an item can be formulated, we just went through a basic example, let's talk about the features around the batches of those products produced. Okay. Now, you're going to hear me use the word batch and lot, and I'm using them interchangeably. Okay, lot is typically what we'll hear out in the industry. However, Dynamics AX's term for a lot is a batch. Okay, so I'm not trying to confuse you, but if you hear me say batch and lot, I'm just using those two words interchangeably. All right, let's talk about disposition codes as a feature within lot or batch management. What disposition codes are is this is telling me it's classifying a lot as it's available or it's not available. Okay, and then based on its availability or really its unavailability, I can define what I'm allowed to do in the system with that batch should it be in that disposition code. I'll give you an example of that in a second. There's the ability to have sales restrictions based off of a specific customer, for example, or a geographic region. There's first expiration, first out, and managing of a lot's shelf life. From the same batch reservation, this is some nice functionality because what it allows me to do is if, for example, I'm a customer and I place an order, I can say I want, let's say I order 100 gallons of paint, and they're each 1 gallon containers. I want to be able to say I want those 100 to all come from the same batch, okay? Because there might be a slight variation, say in the color, for example. So from same batch reservations means I can assign that when I place a sales order, for example, I can say I need all of these 100 to come from the same batch or lot. All right. Batch attributes. Now this is, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, this is a way for additional tracking or additional ways really to classify a lot. So I gave the example, I may have produced this lot of finished good 1, but some attribute tracking, maybe I'm tracking the lead content, or maybe on the food I'm tracking some nutritional types of things. So I can have those additional attributes, as we call them, associated to the batch or lot. And then finally, batch tracing. That gives us full forward and backward traceability within a lot. All right. So just as we did earlier, let's come in now and take a look at some of the specific features looking directly at the AX 2012 screenshots here. So this is the batch disposition form. All right. So the main things on here is really there's just a couple of areas. In the overview section up here, this is where I'm defining, based on the status, if it's available or unavailable. It's pretty straightforward. And I can have as many of these batch disposition codes as I want. All right, so I just have 2 examples here. One that's general availability, and one I set up that's the batch disposition code that's in quality control. It's being tested. All right. And then the setup section right here is where you can define the types of activities that can and cannot be done should a batch or a lot be assigned to that disposition code. All right. So an example of that was if I was probably looking at my NQC disposition code, I may block it. If it's in quality control, I may not let a lot of these happen, so I would just, check mark it. I don't want to ship it out, be able to pick it and ship it if it's in quality control, so I probably have that checkbox marked. But maybe I would leave the reservations open. So as part of the sales order process, maybe I want the sales order entry person or whomever to be able to reserve that lot with, assuming once that passes quality, I'm able to ship it out. So maybe I don't want to block the reservation. I just want to block it from actually shipping to the customer until quality control is done. All right, so Within here, again, set up as many disposition codes as you want, and then they're either available or unavailable, and then you can define within the setup area here what you can and cannot do. Okay? All right, let's go on and look at the next one. Here's an example of this is the batch attributes master form, and this is where you can define, again, an unlimited number of attributes or characteristics of an item, if that term or that word works a little bit better. And you're able to have those attributes, and then you can assign acceptable ranges, for example, that the lot must carry. So here we're looking at that example of lead content. All right, so I have a batch attribute or a characteristic called lead content. And over here I'd say, what's acceptable is a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 0.009. All right? And then with my tolerance action, I have the ability to say I'm either going to get a warning or it's not going to be allowed at all. All right? So based on the transaction that occurs, if it falls outside of this range here, I'm going to get a warning, or I can also set that to error out completely and don't allow the transaction to occur. All right? And what's nice about these attributes is they can be tied directly into quality control. So as quality tests are being done, you're recording the results, for example, the lead content of that batch. And then it can also be assigned at the customer level. So the customer can request that if I buy this finished good item, if I'm requesting this finished good item, however, the lead content cannot be greater than, say, 0.002, for example. Well, then that will lead with the, help with the, the pick, pack, ship process, make sure the customer is getting the appropriate item that meets their attribute requirements. All right, so that's the batch attributes. And then the last example here in this section is around lot tracing. All right, like I mentioned, you're able to do, both forward or backward tracing on lots, and you can define what you want displayed, as a result of your trace. Let's just look at this example here. All right, so this is the initiating transaction, and we're going to work forward. Okay, so what it's telling you here is this particular item, this is the transaction date. It was a result of a counting transaction next. I did a physical count. Okay, I added 475 in stock into this site, and this is the batch number. All right, and if I go forward, there were some transfers between sites where I moved 400, bounced them around between different sites within my warehouse. And then finally, I have some here that was consumed on a production line. All right. This is a basic example. A more powerful one, really, is if I start out with maybe a lot, and I can see all of the sales, okay, shipments that it went out on, break that down to the production line, see the raw materials that were consumed. So lot traceability really is one of the kind of a big manual pain point within many organizations today, and it's a task that can take hours, if not days, to complete. But the tracing capabilities here within Dynamics AX 2012, it's really a task that can take literally minutes. I plugged in the lot, and I'm able to see all of the detail behind that. Okay. All right. Okay, let's take a look now at some of the production components, as there's many additional features in production that are, specifically for process manufacturing and life science types of organization. Get my mouse down here. The first concept here is that of what we call production types. So what that is that allows me now to classify items as either, I can say this is a formula item, this item is a co-product, this item is a byproduct. There's an item called, or a production type called a planning item. So there's different types, and depending on the type of item it is, it can go down different, can have different processing types of activities. Right? Here again is that total cost allocation, and what this is it's giving me the ability to allocate the cost of my production process not only to my finished good item, but also down to any co-products that might also be a result of my production process. We can not only support co-products, but we can also support co-product variations. And what that means is, when I produce an item, I may not always get co-product 1. I may get co-product 1, 2, 3, or 4. All right, so we can have those variations as part of our production process. And then with MRP, the MRP process allows me to plan, across multiple sites, so whether they're different locations within a company or actually across company. And then I can also plan for co-products as part of my MRP run. All right. So once again, let's take a look at some of the screenshots. And this is an example of a formula. This is probably a better example than the one I used earlier. And this is from my food processing demo database, where we are theoretically, or not theoretically, really, we're breaking down chickens and we're turning those into, the legs, the breast, the wings, those types of things. All right. What I want to point out here, because I didn't show it earlier, was the catch weight component. So here I'm saying this is my we call a planning item. So this is my bird, and I'm breaking it down. Okay. And my catch weight quantity per bird is 3.3 kilograms, and I have 1,000 quantities, so it's 3,300 kilograms. So here's just an example of that dual unit of measure. All right. But really, what I want to focus on here is if I were to come in here and click on the co-products button for that particular item. Okay. So when we break down this bird, okay, these are the co-products we're expecting, and these are the byproducts that we're expecting. Okay. Co-products really are considered desirable output, okay, whereas the byproducts are most likely considered undesirable. All right. What I want to focus on here is around the cost allocation. Okay. So what this is, I just want to make sure I'm not getting ahead of myself here. The costing allocation. So what it's telling me here is how I'm breaking down my production costs. What I'm doing is I'm using a total cost allocation. So the total cost of my production run is going to be split 25% here, 25% here, 25 and 25% across my four products. Okay. The other options with cost allocation is manual or also none. I don't want to allocate any cost at all. Okay, manual would say, okay, I want this one to be, 10%, this one to be 50, as long as the total equals 100%. Okay. With the byproducts, on the other hand, we have the ability here to assign a burden amount. So I have a certain dollar amount per quantity assigned to each one of these undesirable byproducts that I need to, really the cost of, to dispose of those byproducts. All right. So you see, hopefully you're seeing some flexibility here. So I took that formula, I broke it down now into co and byproducts. I'm able to get pretty flexible with my costing. Okay. Now that we talked about production, let's roll into quality management. Okay. Quality control and management is probably one of the key requirements when we talk to process and life science types of organizations. And the quality functionality within Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012 is standard to AX. It's not specific to process industries. However, it addresses a lot of the main challenges that these organizations are facing today. All right, let's just talk about some of these features here. We talk about automatic quality order creation per batch. There are many different areas in the application where I can have quality orders automatically generated for me. So, a couple examples of that may be, upon purchase receipt. When I receive something in, I want that maybe to go into a quarantine status, and I want a quality order automatically generated for QC to take action. Another example may be, upon production completion. It goes through a quality check. But we can also break it down to the production operation. So it gets through, this step of the process. I want a quality check. So there's a lot of different areas to automatically kick off those quality orders. Okay. There's full sampling capabilities, whether you want to sample by a quantity, a specific quantity, or a percentage. The batch disposition codes, as I spoke about earlier, and these can be assigned automatically based on the result of a quality test. Right? And then finally, there's full retest functionality and also non-conformance reporting. All right, with that, let's again take a look at a few of the screenshots here. I like to there's a lot of different areas within quality, but this quality association master page kind of really is all encompassing as far as what you get out of the quality component. So what this is telling me here is for Site 1, when I do, and this reference type is the areas that I was referencing earlier about how you can kick off quality orders. So it could be purchasing, sales, inventory. This is as the result of co-product production. For this particular item, okay, we're going to generate a quality order. All right? And then if we come down here to the quality order generation, when do I want that quality order to be generated? I want it to be generated when the production process is reported as finished. And that's a standard sequence step within production in Dynamics AX. So when I flag it as report as finished, after I flag it as reported as finished, that will automatically kick off a quality order. So when I go look at that production order, for example, right next to it, it's going to say there's an open quality order. It's going to say the production order is reported as finished, but there's an open quality order to be completed. All right? And then down here, the specification, what am I testing? What is the test that this particular item is going to go through? And I have it here going to the test group, going through a nutrition test. All right? We're going to look at that test in a second. But here is where I also have the sampling. Okay? I don't have this set, so this is actually going to test the whole batch. But I could have on here, I want to test, 2%. I want to test 2. Okay, so I can have those item sampling by either quantity or percentage. All right. So the nutrition test. So if I bring up this window, what this is telling me is when it goes through a nutrition test, we're doing a fat test and a protein test, okay, for example. And I don't have the screen showing here, but if I were to actually click on the test tab, that would be showing me. So for the fat test, we're expecting an outcome between, these within this range, and the same thing within the protein test. I have them set up by ranges. All right. But then to tie all of this together, you see down here, you see the attributes. So this is where, again, it can write back. So when I'm recording the results of this fat test, that's going to go into the fat content. It's writing right back to the attribute that's attached to the item. That could theoretically go all the way back to a customer request. We're requesting that this fat content is only 0.2%, for example. All right? So all of that is tied together. And those were the three components I wanted to talk about on quality. And then finally here, I want to talk a little bit about the compliance and regulatory. All right? These are key components within the life sciences and process industries. If we look first at the 21 CFR Part 11 compliance for the electronic signatures, that's fully supported within Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012. We have the MSDS, TSDS, and the CAS support, in addition to support for regulated, restricted, and or reported product information. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at, actually I have examples for each one of these here. So if we look at the electronic signature capabilities, it can go throughout the application. Here are some examples where I have electronic signature set up. I actually don't have them required, but I have them set up. Some other examples may be, when I create I don't have my formula version in here, but maybe, when I approve a formula version, I need a signature. I make a change to a formula, I need a signature, okay? Or I do any sort of specific material movement of product, I need a signature. So you can build in those electronic signatures that will go back to meet that 21 CFR Part 11 compliance. I go look at the next area. This is the example of the MSDS capabilities within Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012. Let's just talk about this for a second. So how AX handles it is it's really set up more where the actual MSDS form itself is coming from somewhere else, so whether it's accompanying your raw material receipt, okay, or coming from an external MSDS application, all right, what the capabilities within AX allow you to do is take that MSDS form that's already been created, store that information in here, okay, versioning information, effectivity dates, etc. And then I can go in here under document handling, scan that in, and then have that attached to the actual record itself. Okay, so whether it's a particular item number or whatnot. Then I have the ability here to actually open that up so I can physically see the MSDS form. All right. So just to be clear, AX will not actually generate and create the MSDS for you. It's able to take MSDS information from a form that's already been created or from a different application and store that data in here. All right. And then as far as some of the setup around MSDS within inventory, I can set up, for example, if I sell, an item to a customer and an MSDS is required, I can automatically have that generated from the document that's attached via document handling. So there are some rules on the setup where I can have those automatically kicked off. Okay. And then finally here, this is some of the what we call the reporting details data. So here is where we can store whether it's OSHA information, EPA, other compliance types of data. Here you see some examples here where we're able to store, product name, whether there's reportable quantity, and then down here I don't have it expanded very well. It shows the actual usage data for this item. Okay, and I'm able to generate reports off of this information for compliance needs. Then up here we also have the ability then to drill in and record if there is a chemical abstract services number. We can log that in and attach it directly to the item itself. Okay, and then the last piece on here, so we have the reported, restricted, and regulated. Okay, the restricted I talked about a little bit earlier, how we could have restricted product, whether it's by a particular customer group, or a geographic region. Okay. So those were the main topics that I wanted to cover today, specifically trying to address the industry challenges that I spoke about at the beginning. So with that being said, Helen, I will send the webcast back to you.
All right, thanks, John, and thank you so much for joining today's presentation. If you would like to learn more about AX 2012, you can join us for one of our upcoming webcasts that you can see here on the screen. To register, go to TechTuraAX2012.com and click on the event schedule. On that site, we have also posted recordings of previous webcast sessions. You may also contact us directly at na.inquiries@techtura.com, and we'll be happy to assist you. So with that, thanks again for your time, and have a great day. You may sign off now.